Jon Cerf went from solo trainer to the CEO of a 10-location fitness brand, and he's just getting started. In this episode, he shares the real journey behind core progression, how it began, where it nearly derailed, and how he learned to scale without losing culture. We'll talk about delegation, team growth, early branding mistakes, and why true ownership is about upgrading your problems, not avoiding them. This one's honest, tactical, and full of lessons for anyone trying to turn a personal passion into a sustainable business. Welcome to Legacy Unscripted, sponsored by Progeny Coaching. This is the podcast where sports and business collide. I'm your host, Russ Katzman, and here we'll skip the fluff and get straight to the hustle. From athletes turned entrepreneurs to impact-driven business leaders, we'll dive into the wins, the lessons, and some of those failures that make our legacies worth living. Today, I'm happy to welcome Jon Cerf, CEO and founder of Core Progression. Welcome to the show, Jon.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So one of the things we talked about when we had our introductory call was you felt this entrepreneurial pull very early on. Tell me about selling seashells.
Yeah, so I grew up in Colorado, and my family would often take trips to Florida to get out of the cold and snow. And Clearwater Beach was one of our favorite destinations. And don't have core memories of this, so this is somewhat being told secondhand from my parents. But we would go to the beach when I was about 2, get a bucket, collect a bunch of seashells, and then come back to the resort and sell them to all the people staying there. And I think my parents knew there might be some entrepreneurial tendencies when 2-year-olds selling seashells that people could walk 10 feet and go pick up themselves. But you get a cute kid with a towel and some seashells, and people will buy it. So
that's funny. So has that translated into what you're doing today? Are you out selling things?
Yeah, I mean, we're changing people's lives with fitness at Core Progression, but I think to me, things that people need and make a bigger impact on their overall health, wellness, and longevity.
Gotcha. And so you're in the Denver area, Core Progression is. Tell me about kind of the reach and the amount of lives that you're able to impact right now.
Yeah, so we currently have 8 locations in the Denver metro area. We have 1 in Austin, Texas, and then we're opening up our 10th location in Oklahoma. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's one of those things. We've been able to touch thousands, if not tens of thousands of lives over almost the last 18 years. And, really having a heart to help people look and feel their best, and using exercise to be that vehicle to help them accomplish that.
Gotcha. And so that means you are, as the CEO, trying to take your measure of culture and that kind of thing and do it distributed, right? It's easy to do things when you've got your employees in your back pocket or in your backyard there. It's a different story when they're in another state. Talk to me about the challenges that has presented for you.
Yeah, it's systems, and I think these are things where one of the books I would highly recommend for anybody looking at starting a business, or even if you have a business, is the E-Myth.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those where that was me. I remember reading that book going, oh my gosh, somebody did an autobiography on me. I didn't even know about it. So, I think it's things where having kind of a standard operating procedure and having, manuals for literally every single aspect of the business. Yeah. And then it's more, can you train and teach to that? And then how do you have quality control and make sure that those standards are being upheld? That's how you scale anything. And, then it doesn't really matter. Is it in Colorado? Is it in Texas? Is it in Oklahoma? Is it in Arizona? States kind of become irrelevant because basically you have a way of doing things, and now you're just training to that way of doing things.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of that book is when Gerber gets talking about the future org chart, right? And the fact that you as the owner right now, every single box in there.
Yeah.
Right. And gradually you want to go and pull your name out and put somebody else's name in. What's that box right now that you'd love to be able to hand off to somebody else that you haven't yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, for me, we're kind of starting to hit that flux point of bringing in someone maybe as a VP of ops, or someone that, really is kind of doing more, culture and people development type thing, especially as we get to be the larger size that we are. something that I'm currently doing, but I think that's kind of one of the last boxes of figuring out, okay, how do I hand some of those things on so I can continue with more vision? And, I love the real estate component of what we do and, kind of creating in a sense. I've been an artist since I was young as well. And I think that's almost like a creative outflow of, finding a location, daydreaming about it, coming up with what that's going to look like, working with architects and taking something that is kind of big gray, shell and turning it into a vibrant, flowing business with people and energy. And that's a fun process for me.
I like it. So if that's the case, if you can get operations to someone else, do you just see yourself in that visionary, role, or where do you see yourself 2 or 3 years down the road with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that if we can kind of continue on this growth path, within 2 or 3 years, we're probably somewhere maybe between 12 and 15 locations. And so I think those are things, continuing to also coach. I love education and coaching and, kind of trying to help the team get better and constantly, reading and looking around the corner for different topics to try and disseminate that information. And so I would say, at that point, staying in the CEO position, helping with the future growth, looking at, where those markets would be and helping opening those markets, and then being able to come in and continue to develop people, but maybe not so much on the, hey, if there's a phone call on a day-to-day basis type thing, but more, weekly, monthly type of a leadership in that sense.
Gotcha. So you talk about those markets. What does your ICP look like right now? Who do you target with core progression and trying to bring those people in?
Yeah, I would say, pardon the bad pun, but the core client that we work with for the most part is probably, working professional 35 to 50 is, probably the majority of people. That being said, do we have 7-year-olds? Do we have 77-year-olds? Yes. But, I think it's people, they are sitting in an office or behind a desk for most of their day. They understand the need to move. They understand, I think as longevity has become a buzzword in the last 3 years, hey, I got to do stuff. Their time's valuable. They want to not have to, go and try and figure out what to do on their own, so being able to come and get a professional to then take them through the workout that's, custom tailored for themselves and their body makes it time and cost effective, and no different than, a lot of people go and use a CPA, or you go and get a mechanic. Could you do your own taxes? Yeah. Could you change your own oil? Yeah. Is that best and most highest use of your time? Probably not. And so I think that's where, services have really shifted in the last probably 10 or 15 years, where working professionals are kind of like, how can I outsource so many of these things? Because then I can go put my time, effort, energy towards the things that are going to be best and highest use of my time. And that's kind of a large swath of who we're working with on a daily basis.
Gotcha. So we're in a unique time where technology is doing a whole lot for people, right? We've got AI. You can get AI to kick out a workout program for you. You got Tonal or Mirror that sits on a wall and does a workout program for you, or they're prescribed or pre-demonstrated workout programs. Who do you truly see right now as your competitor, and why?
Yeah, I would say, not that those things don't exist, but that's not who we're losing clients to. We're losing people because they're like, oh, wait, I could just now give me a workout. I'd say there are a lot of one-off trainers or people who, they have their own studio, they do it themselves. Maybe they have 2 or 3 staff around them. And so, some of the big box gyms offer training, but to me, that's more of a kind of an ancillary service as to how they view it and look at it. And so I would say, it's other local trainers that are doing this in some form or capacity. Most of them only have one location. Most of them, they are the coach that is training from 5 or 6 in the morning until 5 or 6 at night. And so, that there are other options. We're not the only people doing this, but I would say that's probably, in each one of our direct markets who the competitors are.
I'll tell you, that's I've worked with several trainers as a executive or entrepreneur coach, and it is not easy those first handful of years. It is really tough to try to get yourself to the point of where you're no longer just doing it all yourself. You can start to take advantage of other people or programs and that kind of stuff. What for you was the turning point? When did you realize you weren't just doing personal training, you were now creating a business out of this?
Yeah. I think for me, I would say it was probably 2016 when I really started to move to more systematizing. So at that point, I had a business. I was training, from sun up till sundown and weekends, overseeing things. I even had scaled to 3 locations, still doing that. But I think that's when I kind of hit that crossroad of, do I still want to be the trainer? And then I need to go find somebody to be, the owner, CEO, head of the company that's running the company, or do I need to kind of switch hats and maybe say, okay, I'm going to go become that person and then start to offload those things. And, I was able to do it in a way where it didn't have to be cold turkey and I just dropped every single client on my roster. But it was, I look back and there's times where it's like, man, I don't know how I did 280 sessions, giving workouts in a month. I'm glad I don't have to do that today. But so I would say 2017 was kind of that inflection point. Knowing what I know now, I probably should have done it earlier. I think, would have had more growth had I, but I think those are some of the different things that when you become the skilled worker at it, how do you then delegate, hand that off when you're kind of the person that's like, hey, they're coming because they want to come work with me. How do I then build a system? How do I build a business? How do I build a company that's not so I'm the bottleneck and I'm not limiting resource? And you see that in a lot of, dentists or other medical professionals. It's like they own a high paying job. They don't own business in that sense where they're the ones who do all the procedures, not, scaling and building out something that can grow in that sense.
Well, and we see that in any of these service industries where what you do and the value you bring to the table, what you get paid for, quite honestly, is all of this experience. It's not just, hey, I'm John, I'm a nice guy. It's, hey, I'm John, I'm a nice guy, but I got all this experience that's going to help you get to where you want to go. Yeah. Talk to me, and I love the fact that we're talking about this because it's a huge inflection point for a lot of these businesses, whether it's in the fitness training space or, to your point, doctors, lawyers, anybody who's highly trained in a specific area. They think their skill set is so specific, and it is to an extent. We're one of a kind, but we're really not at the same time, right? Talk to me about how you find that first person that you say, you know what? I can teach this person to do things the same way I would. What did you look for? Was it tangible? Was it intangible? How did you find that person?
Yeah, we like to have the saying hungry, humble, smart are kind of the 3, tangible and intangible things that we're looking for. And so with that, it's like hungry, not in the appetite sense, but more, hey, do you have a desire to learn? Is it something that, you want to get better and become a better version of you? Humility is huge. I think there's so many egos, especially in fitness, where it's one of those things, especially when aesthetics are involved. A lot of people are like, hey, look how good I look. And I can take my shirt off. And do you see how many abs I have? And, so trying to not let that be the ego and be more in a team environment or concept where it's like, hey, we always want to put the team above ourselves. We want to put the organization above ourselves. And then smart, not only from an educational standpoint that, yes, you need to know the anatomy, the physiology, those types of things, but more social and emotional intelligence. And I think those are things that, get so little credit, but have probably a much far bigger impact on earning potential, upward life potential, those types of things. And I think, being in a human business, we don't have competitors like Tonal because they don't have social and emotional intelligence to the level that a human can yet. And, I know AI is working hard at it, but I think those are things that until that's to the point where, hey, they can have that, that's kind of the competitive advantage that we still have as humans over any type of machine driven, form and spitting out exercises is, hey, I can, drive empathy in a way or understanding or, connect with you. It sounds easy. Oh, yeah, it's cool. Just kind of hand off, clientele or do those things. I think the harder thing was coming up with, okay, no one's ever going to do it like me because it's me. So what level of product quality am I okay with, and what level is still acceptable to not only still be able to put my name on it and feel good about it, but still have a viable business that's going to succeed in the marketplace. Because I think that's probably why I held on longer, is you came to me and said, hey, John, get me in shape. I knew I could do it unequivocally to a level that I didn't feel maybe confident that I could give you to someone else. And it's not going to be quite the same. They're not going to do it exactly as me. And so I think that was more of the internal wrestle of, okay, might not be exactly as me, but is it close or good enough that I'm willing to not have to take on, 500 hours of my time giving that to you to get that same result, because it would be close enough. And I just freed up all my time to go do other things because I'm letting someone else take you on that path and journey and that experience.
Yeah. And I think that's the piece that a lot of entrepreneurs don't go down that path thinking as, what could I be doing if I wasn't doing this? Right? They worry about, well, if I hand this to somebody else, it's going to fail. Well, maybe yes, maybe no, but think about the things you could be doing if you free yourself up. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the failure part, any examples of somebody that you tried to bring into that role, it didn't quite work out? Give me an example or an idea of.
Almost 20 years, I've had hundreds of trainers work for me. So that's kind of, depending on the day, the week, the month, an ongoing thing of, hey, we thought that person was going to be able to take it on, and maybe they didn't live up to those expectations. I think on a bigger, level of running business, there's been times where we have had to have changes at the helm of management. And, to me, it's more, hey, they didn't maybe have the skill set to be able to operate a business, or they had the skill set to be a trainer and they were trying to cross over into that manager, couldn't really figure those things out. So, handfuls of examples depending on, at the trainer level, which is, direct client interaction, at the manager level, even if maybe probably at the higher upper management type level, that they just didn't have the, exact skill set or core competencies to be able to oversee those things. And, I think in business, it's like, you're going to fail. It's always that, how do you handle that? You don't let it define you. It's something, I always say you hire on what you think, you fire on what you know. And so, you're guessing, even if you do a gazillion interviews and personality tests and run everybody through, the strictest funnel, you're going to find out in the real world. And so then it's like, how do you take that information and then make choices? I think earlier and younger version of me, it's like you held on maybe longer than you should have, because you didn't want to say, hey, I made a bad hire, I made a bad choice. Yeah. And so you would let it play out longer than they probably otherwise should have, because it was really more protecting your own ego versus the fact that you knew, well, they aren't doing the job to the way or the standard, but I don't want to admit, yeah, I actually made a bad decision. And so I think those are things that, as I've gotten more seasoned in this, is, okay, you do the best you can with the information at hand. If you don't get it right, that's okay. And you learn to get better and faster at it, versus letting things run courses longer that then you're like, now I got a way bigger mess, because had I just made that decision sooner, it's all work. I think those are other things too. I think a lot of times people, they try and avoid work, and it's like, it's all. And so, lean into the work, and it's like, some work might be more fun. Opening a new location is work. Is it maybe more fun work than it is having that hard conversation and having to go, turn around a facility or let somebody, yeah, it's all work. And so I think if you can get to that point where you're not avoiding the work, but you're leaning into the work, that makes a big impact as to how you move and how you run and lead the company.
Gotcha. No, I love that. And I love this statement that it's all work, right? Because, and even when you love what you do, right, you still have to put that energy in it. You still have to put that work in it. Now, you may not mind doing that because it's what's comfortable for you. It's what you love doing. But at the end of the day, it's still work. And it's work to be able to do that. If you want to be able to do what you love, there's other things you have to do. Now, that may be you've outsourced it and you just have to do a little bit of management of those individuals. But most of the time, it does require at least a little management of those individuals, even setting expectations for those individuals. It's not just a set it and forget it and not do things at all, right? Those are some pretty deep thoughts when it comes to running a business. Not something that just naturally sits in the mind of a personal trainer when they come out of school. Talk to me about your business training. How much have you learned on the job versus how much you learned along the way in education? Where did it come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. My original plan was to not be a personal trainer, but I wanted to be an oral surgeon and, wanted to go to med school. And that was kind of what I had trained all throughout college. I was kind of gearing up for that. And so to me, I came out with a science background. So 100%, instant on the job training when, you own your own thing. And it's like, man, you spend money on marketing, you learn more than any book on marketing that you could ever, ever hear about. You go pass out flyers and it's like, you get instant feedback on if that works or if that doesn't work. I did go and get an executive MBA in 2018 through the SBA, kind of a cool program. They only accepted 22 people. Only 9 of us actually finished the curriculum. But, so that was something more formal, kind of going through case studies and doing, masterminds with other business leaders and those types of things. But I've been a voracious reader, and I think it's one of those things that trying to get my hands on any book I can on business and learn, hopefully before I have to run into the lesson. And so I think it's been a combination of real life, real world, on the job training, and at the same time, reading everything I can to try and take somebody else's experience. I think they say wisdom is learning from someone else. And so for me, okay, can I go hit every pothole? Yeah. Would it be better to, drive behind somebody else who's avoiding them? I would take that route if I can. So, so I think it's been something, also marketing was something that I kind of was, scary and kind of, didn't feel as skilled at. I think just like in school, it's like we all lean into the subjects that we like the most and therefore we do better at them. And so I think for me, management, marketing, some of these topics that maybe don't come as natural, I've really had to, take it and say, hey, if I'm avoiding it, why? What do I need to do to go get better at it? So now I actually really love it and enjoy it versus just going to ignore it, because in business, it never goes away. It's just you either have to go find somebody else to then take it on, or you got to learn it. And I think for me, it was like I needed to at least be proficient enough that I could talk with other people and understand the language and the nuance. And so I knew what they were even talking about and how to communicate them to even find good people to potentially work in those roles of the organization.
No, that's terrific. I love it. I love the evolution that you talk about. And I think that's truly what it is for any good business owner, giving yourself permission to evolve. I've said this in blogs, I've said this in other pods. We have a tendency to kind of see ourselves as a certain A or B type person. I mean, they're good at this or I'm not good at it, right? And instead, it's not who you are as a person. It's just what do you know today versus what you'll know in the future, and allowing yourself to evolve and take in all that information that allows you to morph into the leader that you need to be at that time. Right?
Yeah.
Whether it's somebody who knows how to delegate, whether it's somebody who knows how to just get dirty and get in, knuckles deep in something, or if it's a salesperson versus an HR person. I just had this conversation with another person an hour ago. And we were talking about all the things going on in her business. And it included compliance stuff. It included HR stuff. It included employee negotiations, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those things, in addition to what she already did well, which was selling and being a CEO and leading the organization. But none of those were really in her wheelhouse, but she had to learn them. She has to evolve to be able to take those things on.
Yeah.
So I love that as a term. The evolution for your business. One thing you just mentioned was real estate. Talk to me about why that's important. You think about core progression, that's not a real estate company, or is it?
Yeah. And I'm sure people have seen the founder or read the McDonald's story, and, really they're a real estate company, not a hamburger company. That's just is who the tenant, that happens to be in their all their real estate holdings. And grew up in a real estate family. My dad had still has a residential company going on almost 50 years in the industry. And so, I was drugged to open houses from the time I was little and would go door knocking and hand out flyers for him. And, that then parlayed into me starting a landscaping company where I would then maintain, rentals or, people trying to sell. So when I started getting my own money, that was kind of the first thing I went and started investing in. And, I think kind of going back to that, when's that juxtaposition of being able to pull yourself out of being the person into running the business, have the vision and the foresight to say, okay, if I'm training 200 plus sessions a month, pretty good money. How do I then replace this money if I'm handing that off and taking a fraction of all of those sessions?
Yep.
Be able to still grow and afford the lifestyle. So started buying residential properties and creating passive income through rentals, and then that ended up turning into starting to buy buildings that my business was located in. And now not only from tax advantage standpoint, but being able to go and find vacant places, bring a business in, create instant equity from a real estate investor standpoint. It to me, it allows me to kind of pursue multiple passions and play in multiple parallels that most people, they just look at rent as a line item, where to me it's like, cool, I got unrealized gain every single month. I've got appreciation that play. He's stopped me. Hey, yeah, you have a great business. Don't take anything that actually ends up.
Yeah, we froze.
I was cooking.
You were cooking. You got to the unrealized gain part, and I was leaning in, listening to it. All of a sudden, it just kind of, and then you froze hard, and I'm like, oh shit, that was good stuff.
All right, I can keep going if you want me to pick up from that.
Yeah, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, so I think with that you get not only unrealized gain, you also get tax advantages. You have things, it allows you to play in multiple parallels versus it just being a line item in your P&L. Sharon, I got to go to lunch with the guy who was the CEO of Qdoba and was talking to him about core progression, and he said, hey, don't take anything I'm about to say in an offensive way. You have a great business. I think the real estate might actually be, the greater driver of what this could look like. And that I'd known that, but I think having someone else with his status and prestige kind of say that was like, wait a second. He was like, take a look at what you've made just from the real estate versus what you're making in the entity. I was like, wow. He was, go do that. And I think that was something that also was like, okay, cool. And so now being able to not only marry two passions, running a business that's helping people, but then at the same time going and acquiring and acquiring, more real estate has been something I really get excited about.
Well, and it's interesting because people talk all the time about should I rent or should I buy, right? And then the opportunity there becomes, well, if you can buy, you get an asset that regardless of how well the business itself does, you still have an asset, right? To counteract any debts or any loan or to appreciate in value. And you can, take your business someplace else or something if you'd like, right? I love that aspect of it. I love the fact that you discovered it and have been able to take advantage of it. I think that's a tremendous value for you. And I think it's a great lesson for anybody that's listening to kind of take in for themselves is that it's not just the business. You can help people and still make good money. And it doesn't have to be within the same entity, right? It could be the same purpose and you kind of help yourself and help your business and make good money doing it. And all of that can coexist.
And it's, being a landlord, giving other people opportunities to open and start small businesses has been something that I, can also do where it's like, hey, I'm letting other people have their entrepreneurial dream and, be a great landlord. There's some good ones. There's some not so good ones, and I kind of ran into some of those not so good ones when I, got out the gate. And so I think those were things too that kind of helped me. Hey, I want to control this aspect of business, and at the same time, be able to give other people an awesome opportunity to run business as well.
So, a couple more questions for you. Which do you enjoy more, running and doing the things that you're doing right now in core progression, or being a landlord?
Probably depends on the day and the phone call that I get. I think those are things that
What emergency am I dealing with?
Yeah, I like to say, I heard this, everybody has problems. Your goal is to try and trade up your problems. And so those are things where instead of trying to have problem avoidance, it's like just get better problems. And it was one of those things. I was actually at a franchising conference, and at the time my problem was, can I even get a franchisee? And somebody else's problem was, I have all these Canadian franchisees and I'm dealing with, customs and trying to repatriate the money. And it's like, that's a problem. It's just a better problem than the one I have. And so I think that kind of helped me shift my mindset, is to don't avoid problems, just get better problems. And so I think, with that, either each one of those, sometimes it depends on what the problem is, that can be bigger, I guess. I also feel like it's at the point where if it's in front of me, it's a problem that nobody else could solve. And so those are things where I only get everybody's hardest problem, because if it was a problem that they've already been able to take care of, it's not in front of me. And so, I like problem solving, and kind of keeps my brain sharp. So depending on, hey, this was a few years ago, we had someone literally drive a car into one of my buildings, and I got that phone call. That was definitely a problem. Fortunately, nobody was injured. And, so that's definitely one of those days where you're like, maybe I don't want to be the landlord and that now become the problem that I gotta take on.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, well, if you didn't own the building, you wouldn't have to worry about anybody driving into it. But kind of like owning the building, so I guess I'll deal with people driving into it.
Yeah, and believe it or not, that was not the first time I've had a car drive into my building. So, yeah. So I think depends on the day, depends on the problem as to which hat I like to put on.
That's funny. Yeah, I tell that to my clients quite a bit. I mean, I love the way you phrase it about trading up your problems. I love that as an idea. In fact, I may put that on one of my post-it notes for myself. But yeah, I'd love using the principle with my clients of, look, it's a $500 issue that keeps you awake today, right? We want to get to a point for a year from now to where it takes $5,000 to keep you up at night, and then to get to the point where 50,000 keeps you up at night. 49, I can handle. 50,000 keeps you up at night, right? And keep trading up those, as you say, trading up those problems to a better place.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back and talk to that Jon Cerf from day one of when you started this venture. What are you going to tell him that he's got ahead of him? What are some of those lessons that you wish you'd have known, or somebody had told you at that point?
Yeah. Oh man. I think at the same time, it's also great that that's not how life works, and that you don't get handed the entire manuscript of here's what it's going to go. Because I think it would discourage a lot of people. I think I love the thing that it's like the version of you will emerge for every new situation, and so part of that galvanizing of becoming the man or person or leader or owner that you become, you wouldn't be ready for the weight of what 15 20 years of business would look like. On day one, it would completely crush you. I think for me, is I've always had a level of grit and resilience, and I think it would just be, hey, always lean into that. I think for me, it's everything always works out, always. Maybe not in the same timing, maybe not in the same outcome, but it's something that I can unequivocally look back and say everything's always worked out the way that it should.
Yeah.
And so I think really, you almost build that internal muscle of, hey, you run into this problem and you solve it. And so you get a little bit stronger. No different than lifting weights. It's like, what would be the weight that you could lift now versus the 10-year-old version of yourself? You'd be crushed under the bar, where now it's like, that's a warm-up set. I don't even feel it. So, I think those are the different things of just never give up. And I think it's something that having that bulletproof mindset is to, hey, no matter what it is, we're going to figure it out. And I like the saying, if there's no solution, there's no problem. So you can figure it all out, or I guess there's no problem if there's no way to fix it. So, just taking that and things for me is life's long. I think people don't realize, how long, and I don't think I'm that old, but it's something that, looking back at it is, hey, things that maybe don't happen in the timing or don't happen as quickly. It's like, it's a journey, and don't try and speed it all up. I know in today's society, it's like, you see a movie and it's played out over 50 years, or, it just makes us think that all these things happen. And if you read most people's entrepreneurial stories or journeys, it's a lifetime that it takes place. We only see the last little bit of it and go, oh wow, that must have been fun. Look at how big and that thing became, not realizing all the grind, all the work, all the hours that went into it.
Yeah.
That nobody notices or sees. It's like bamboo, where it doesn't grow. Next thing you know, you got a 20-foot shoot. It's like, where did this come from?
Yep. And if you've ever tried to remove bamboo, you know just how deep it goes and how much it entangles with itself before it grows. It's horrendous.
Yeah.
And no, you are not as old as you may feel, because take it from somebody with the white in the beard, you still got a few years yet.
All right.
Jon, it's been a pleasure. Anything I didn't ask that you wanted to make sure you get out there for our listeners?
No, I didn't know if you wanted to, I could share the flyer story. I know we were kind of talking about that.
Sure.
If that's something you find funny or what,
It's always good. Kick it out there for us.
Okay. So I think you had asked me, hey, I got my first location open. What are my expectations? And, looking back, it was like, I thought that I was going to be like in and out coming to a new city where there'd be a line around the corner and people camping out days in advance to, have the chance to work out with a trainer. That was not the case. And, I realized early, wow, things are going to be a lot harder than I think. And I think they're going to take longer than I think as well. And so one of my guerrilla marketing efforts was I went and passed out, I think, 1,500 flyers. My location was kind of, in a more suburban type area. So there's a lot of housing around. And after 1,500 flyers, I think I had one person who came in off of that. Once again, it's like, man, here I thought I had just, spent 4 hours marketing to get one potential client. I'm like, this is going to take a long time. And in hindsight, I look back and the flyer that I was using was a fitness model and photo of myself coming out of a swimming pool. Like I was in a Dolce & Gabbana cologne commercial, and not fishing with the right bait in the right pond for a bedroom community of, probably late 30s, early 40s families. And that, why I thought that was going to be the thing that was going to just spark everyone to come in and train with me. Now it's a funny joke, but definitely, those are the types of things you learn along the way is, okay, you got to fish with the right bait in the right pond.
You're saying that a half-naked picture of a buff 20-something-year-old guy pulling himself out of a pool is not the right flyer to put out there, and
the wives might have maybe said sure. The husbands were like, "You're not being there," and definitely none of the dudes were thinking that it's going to be the guy they want to train with. So, some hard lessons learned along the way.
That's hilarious, and I actually do like the lesson out of that of make sure you're fishing with the right bait to fit the community or the ICP that you're going after. So appreciate you sharing that and throwing that out there for us. Well, Jon, it's been a pleasure. All the listeners, myself, love the stuff you brought to the table, and I can't wait to continue this relationship going forward.
Yeah, thanks so much, Russ. Appreciate you having me today.
So that's a wrap of this episode of Legacy Unscripted. If today's conversation sparks something in you, don't just let it sit. Take action today to build your future. Make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this with someone who may need to hear it. And if you've got a story to share or you just want to connect, you know where to find me. Until next time, keep it real, keep it bold, and keep living your legacy.